Welcome to the Hazard Class Podcast. This is the podcast where I ask my stupid questions to some of the smartest people in and around the world of emergency services. We have an off week this week. We're talking to someone I'm so excited to talk to. He is a certified hypnotherapist and hypnosis instructor and the owner of Summit Hypnosis in Tacoma, Washington. He specializes in using the modality to treat things such as anxiety, PTSD, addiction, and other behavioral and emotional patterns. I don't know much about it, but I am curious. It's my pleasure to welcome Deane Benninghoven. Deane, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jake. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited.
Of course, yeah. I'm very excited. Even just in the chat we had a little bit before we got on, I'm super interested in the modality. I'm super interested in therapeutic modalities in general. And this one's that kind of came up on my radar as of lately, and I'm so intrigued by it because I think it's one of the ones that maybe isn't respected in the ways that it should be. I think that it seems to be, from everything I'm reading, and I'm sure I'll know even more after talking to you, that it's this very effective medium that everyone just equates to, barking like a dog on their high school stage or something like that. But break down what hypnosis is to you and what it can be for someone that wants to try it out.
All right. Well, I guess to start off, to me, hypnosis saved my life. 24 years ago or so, I was in a Swiss watchmaking school, becoming a Rolex certified Swiss watchmaking technician. I was a year and 8 months into a 2-year program, just about to graduate, had my job lined up. I got into all that because I had a family and I was an artist prior to that. So I was looking to make some more money, take better care of the family. And a lady ran through a red light, T-boned my truck, messed up my neck, and chipped a vertebra in my neck that caused all kinds of problems for me. And it was over. It was like as quickly as that. I was in a neck brace. School was done. I had just spent 2 years, 40 hours plus a week trying to do this Rolex program. And now I had nothing. I was in chronic pain, terrible pain. And, back then the solution for chronic pain was opioids.
I was going to say, there it goes. Yeah.
I did that for a couple years, and it was really a negative sort of downward spiral for me. And as I decided to move away from that path, I was looking desperately for anything that could help me deal with this pain. Because when I stopped the opioids, Jake, I didn't know if I wanted to keep living like this. It was just, I describe it as a pain, like a high-pitched sound all the time at the base of my skull. Sometimes I would have numbness through my body and I was afraid to hold my kid. I mean, it sucked. So I was looking desperately for anything I could do to help this pain naturally. And I happened to read an article about them doing surgeries on people using only hypnosis and no other kind of anesthetic. And I thought, aha, that's gotta be a route that I should explore. I called the hypnotist in my area, which was Seattle at the time, and I kept hearing the same sort of thing. You have to buy a bunch of sessions first and pay for them up front. And I had somebody else tell me, pay me $7,000 and I'll work with you until the pain is manageable. I couldn't afford to do any of this. This was like 4 years that I hadn't been able to work consistently. So I ended up going to the library and getting both books they had about hypnosis, and I started to teach myself. And through that process, through that entry point to it, being desperate for something to help me, I discovered this whole world of what we're capable of doing with our minds. It took me about 4 months of working every day and practicing to be able to manage the pain to a point where I realized, well, it's not just about the physical pain. There's a whole bunch of emotional elements to every kind of trauma that we experience. And so I, as a young person, had a lot of trauma that fed into how I dealt with the trauma that I was experiencing as an adult. So then I began a journey of sort of self-discovery through self-hypnosis, ameliorating old patterns, letting them go, the ones that didn't serve me. And that ultimately led me to a place where I realized I'm really, I like this. I'm good at this. I helped family and friends for a number of years, and then got my certification, my license, and opened my practice here in Tacoma.
Do you remember a time when you were like, you had that unlock? We were like, holy crap, this actually works. Do you ever remember having a moment like that?
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. Because I remember I went through 1 hour of one day and my mind was just quiet. And, everybody who comes to see me, Jake, at the beginning, they think, I want to go see that guy and get his hypnosis. But it's not my hypnosis. We all have all of the hypnosis inside us we're ever going to need. The hypnotic state's a natural state. When I realized that I had that quiet mind, the quiet mind is really what everybody who comes to see me wants from whatever is making too much noise for them. For me, it was pain. Mm-hmm. So to have that quiet mind, to just be able to breathe and, really with pain management and hypnosis, it's discovering that I don't have to pay attention to that input like I did before. But that's what created that quiet mind hour for me. And then, with especially pain management with hypnosis, we always have to start with what's believable to the individual. So if I've met people here who have had chronic pain for 15, 20 years, and if I ask them, how long do you think you could be comfortable without meds or very, reduced meds? How long do you think that could be? If it's 10 minutes, well, that's where we have to start, and we can build off of that. Pain management with hypnosis is one of those situations where you really do need to practice every day and put the time in. But the payoff for that is that you can greatly reduce and manage that pain naturally for many, many people. Of course, working along with your doctor.
So that kind of brought that up, like just about what you just said, is like, what are the limits? Obviously, there has to be some sort of outer threshold for like where this sits inside of a treatment plan, right? How do you figure that out?
So I'm usually an ancillary part of a bigger team. Most of the clients that I see are referrals from doctors and therapists and people like that. I do have some people who come to me and, if they've had early childhood trauma, for example, they're coming to hypnosis to avoid having to go do talk therapy. For long-term responses like that, I feel like it's better to work with a talk therapist for some period of time and kind of figure it out, and then come do hypnosis with me, because what we do with hypnosis is very direct and targeted towards the symptom. So whatever the problem is, there's a symptom. Now, it's a huge range of symptoms, but it could be anxiety, could be panic attacks, could be self-harm, could be eating, could be smoking, could be drinking, drugs, sex, whatever we figured out over the course of our lives to get through, right? Oftentimes, those things are the symptom. Those symptoms are sometimes subconscious, and sometimes they're things that we do consciously, even though we know we probably shouldn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so then you're coming in, identifying those symptoms and, quote, untraining the brain to do the behaviors that it was soothing with. Is that right?
Yeah. So all of those patterns of thought and behavior begin in the subconscious mind. And so I think it's important to break down what are we talking about with the subconscious mind, because I think a lot of people, they think they know all about what the subconscious mind is or isn't, and I think a lot of people think they know what hypnosis is when really there's a lot of misinformation out there. So if you think about the mind itself, we've got the subconscious mind over here, the conscious mind over here. Subconscious, that's where we work with in hypnosis. Subconscious mind is all of the patterns that make you, your likes, your dislikes, how you move through the world, what you think about yourselves, what you think about other people, all of that, as well as autonomic nervous system, heart rate, breathing, digestion, blood flow, and the emotional center of the mind. When your subconscious mind can't resolve some emotional situation, it's going to communicate with you by giving you a feeling in your body. And I could tell you a whole lot of stories about people who have had physical manifestations of a subconscious pattern that's caused tremendous problems for them that they were able to resolve with hypnosis. The conscious mind is kind of the lens for my purposes, the lens that tells your subconscious mind, hey, this is what's happening right now. What do we do in this situation? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, where does a person's maybe willingness might not be the right way to say it, but like does somebody have a personal skill that allows them to be quote unquote good at being hypnotized, or is it something where somebody's more prone to be have the modality work well for them versus less, or how does that work?
That's a great question. Let me finish up this one little piece because it is germane to that.
Okay.
So an easy way to think about this is we've got subconscious mind, conscious mind. Kind of a way to think about it is in between the conscious and the subconscious mind, like a guard, like a wall. There's this other part of the mind called the critical faculty of the mind. The critical faculty of the mind is there to protect all of your patterns and keep them just the way they are today, because the subconscious mind looks at those patterns as being excellent patterns. That's based on the fact that you're still alive. And it's a low bar. Whenever we're doing hypnosis, and I do want to mention, hypnotic states are natural states that occur off and on every day. I'm happy to talk about that. It's probably important to talk about that. But whenever you go into a hypnotic state, whether it's natural or induced, that guardian part of the mind, that critical faculty of the mind, goes offline. At the very center of how you could describe a hypnotic experience, it's happening when that part of the mind that's there to protect your patterns is not there. So in a session, in a guided hypnotic experience, we're able to take a lot of the things that you know consciously. For example, many people I've met, they've been doing therapy for years and they've learned all kinds of great stuff about trauma, about themselves, and so on and so forth. But in a natural setting, that information is never going to get into the subconscious mind where it can create change. Because this entire system is designed to keep you from going in and changing your own mind, or from other people changing your mind very easily. It's also where confirmation bias comes from. So if you grow up thinking, I'm not very smart, then as you move through your life, the only information that's going to seep into your subconscious mind is information that confirms this idea that you're not smart, even if you're really, really smart. That's one of those kinds of patterns that I've seen over and over again, experienced myself, that it's an erroneous belief that you picked up as a young person, as a child, and you carry it into your adulthood. This guardian part of the mind, it's not there from the moment we're born until we're around 7 to 10 years old. It develops naturally as we get to around 7 to 10 years of age. So if you've got a pattern prior to that, that doesn't get corrected effectively, now you're on a divergent path from the path you would have been on if you didn't have that pattern. As you walk this new path of life, the only information that gets into your subconscious mind confirms that original, potentially erroneous belief.
Yeah. And so like the one thing that is glaringly obvious as you speak is the interface between hypnosis and like clinical psychology. Because it seems to be like you're saying all the like you're describing a lot of things that I'm familiar with through going to hundreds of hours of therapy, right, in my life. And so this idea of like your inner child and all these concepts in the training to be a certified hypnotherapist or, a practitioner of hypnosis, where is the interface between just understanding hypnosis and also understanding, psychology and some of those other concepts?
That's a fantastic question. Really, that is up to the individual hypnotist to pursue that learning and knowledge. I've been doing this for a long time. Throughout the course of my 20 plus years in hypnosis, I'm constantly taking classes. I'm constantly trying to learn more, but that is not necessary to be a certified hypnotist. So I think one of the things about hypnosis that a lot of people know is that there's an element of hypnosis that's a little bit kind of woo-woo, if that resonates. So I don't want to be that in my practice. I want to be the person who everything I do is based on psychology and brain science and working with psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, doctors. And I have many of those individuals who are clients over the years, and I've learned a lot from them. So it's sort of somewhat, I would say, unique at Summit, the position I'm in of working with trauma the way that I do, having the client base that I do. And as you had mentioned before, I don't want to forget about that. I see a lot of people who would never, ever have considered coming to hypnosis. The only reason they're here is because their doctor, who they trust, told them, you should give this a try. But they are not that open to it necessarily. So part of my job is to help them understand what's really happening, what's really going on. And, I'm not going to zap you and do it to you. You have all the hypnosis you're ever going to need. Now, what that means is we experience these hypnotic states throughout the course of every day. Daydreaming is a hypnotic state. When you slip into a daydream state, well, the conscious mind can only handle about 7 to 9 pieces of information before it's got to do something with it. It's either going to forget about it or you're going to go into a light sort of a daydream state. Whenever you go into that state, guard goes down. And now the conscious mind can import just data, only information, nothing that's going to change a pattern into the subconscious mind. And when you come out of that daydream, oh wow, I hope I'm not drooling. I hope nobody's looking at me. Now, that information is effectively in your subconscious mind forever. It's unlimited storage in the subconscious mind as far as we can understand. So daydreaming is an example of a hypnotic state that we just achieve naturally. Driving is another one. Lots of people know about highway hypnosis. Certainly in your field, you know about that. So driving creates an induced hypnotic state, meaning you're doing something that very, very readily brings you into hypnotic state. You've got a lot of information coming in through your senses. None of it is particularly important or necessarily exciting. It's just data. Your body is doing something it knows how to do with muscle memory. So you don't have to think 5 degrees this way, 10 that way. You're just in car driving mode. That combination of the body doing something it knows how to do and the mind having a whole bunch of sort of meaningless things that it's doing, that sets up an ideal situation to induce a hypnotic state. It's not my hypnotic state, it's yours. So when I have people here in the office, we go through this little thing called an induction. I don't like to think of it as an induction. I like to think of it as an invitation. I'm going to say some things to you, and you can follow along. And if you follow along with the things I do, I'm going to give you a lot of things to do with your mind, and I'm just going to have you relax your body. That combination of things, if you're like 99.9% of the people who come to see me, you're going to be in a deep trance in about 15 minutes. Some people might be resistant. That's one of the things that I found gets in the way of doing really good hypnosis with people is if you don't explain it in a way they can understand it, then there's still enough of an aura of kind of weirdness around hypnosis that they think it's mind control. It's not mind control. If I could make people do things they didn't want to do, my success rate would be 100%, which it's not, but it's pretty good. So these hypnotic states, other places where you naturally find them is just as you fall asleep, you pass through the hypnagogic state. When you wake up, you're in the hypnopompic state. Shower thoughts, that's another one where you're kind of doing your own thing. Your body knows what to do and you're doing a shower. People who play sports, I've heard this many times. I'm out there, the ball's going just where I want it to go. Everything is perfect. It's a flow state. And the athlete thinks, oh, I'm in the zone. And as soon as they have that thought, oh, now it's gone. Because now you've brought a conscious thought into an otherwise subconscious flow state kind of experience.
Interesting.
So when I work with people in that situation, we use, I use this a lot, but anchoring people back into light hypnotic states using something physical that they are in control of. For most people, it's rubbing your fingers together. So in the first session, we will work on connecting, slipping into a natural hypnotic state through suggestion to something that you do on your own when you need to. When you go into hypnotic states, a couple of things happen then. Number one, it feels good to be in control when you use your anchor. But number two, even in very light hypnotic states, those are called hypnoidal states, but in these hypnoidal states, big emotions have a tendency to get quiet. If you've ever been angry or upset, gotten in your car and gone for a drive, after a few minutes, you're still thinking about that thing that really upset you, but the emotional part gets quiet. That's a byproduct of getting into that kind of very, very light trance state. It's such a light trance state that you don't even recognize it as such, but that's what's happening. And then this emotional part gets quiet. So when we link that to something like an anchor, now I can control my big emotions, things like anxiety, things like anger, fear, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that that's a really interesting way to explain it, because I don't know if I could think of just about anyone that can't relate to the idea of driving down the interstate and then realizing it's been 15 minutes since the last time you realized you were driving or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a very common thing, or one of those flow state things. And when you equate that to a hypnotic state, all of a sudden you go, okay, well, if then it's like the transitive property or something like, well, if that exists, then also they must be able to harness this, for a skeptical person to say, well, they must be able to harness this then to, have positive outcomes. So how important is it? I know you mentioned it earlier in terms of people doing some prior work with, like typical talk therapy prior to coming and meeting with you. How important is it for the person coming to have hypnosis done? I don't even know, would you say on them or be a part of hypnosis?
Yeah, I like that.
Being a part of hypnosis to understand exactly what they want to treat. Do they need to know what they want to treat, or is it something you can navigate there?
That's a really, really interesting question. Most people, it's obvious what they want to treat because it's the thing that is making them uncomfortable or miserable in their lives. By far, the biggest thing I work with is anxiety, panic attacks, things like that. I work with lots of people who have had early childhood trauma, and that even though they've created a life where they're physically safe, those old patterns still exist and still echo through their lives today, because at one point those patterns made sense. At one point those patterns helped them, at least from their point of view, stay safe, stay alive, so they were relevant. The thing that's cool about hypnosis is that life doesn't exist anymore. You've grown up, your subconscious mind isn't really even keyed into the fact that you're all grown up in a different person. It's still coming back to these same patterns. But what we want to do in hypnosis for things like that, PTSD, is correct that lens so that the subconscious mind understands this is my life today. This is safe. This is comfortable. And if that's true, then that old pattern is no longer relevant like it once was. What's exciting to me in that situation is I'm not telling them any of this. I don't tell anybody anything. It's great work if you can get it. But no, what I want to do is I want to guide the part of them that is who they are today back to the part of them that's stuck in this trauma loop. Whether that's who they were when they were a child, or when they were a young adult, or whether they were, in the war, 10, 15, 20 years ago, or, 3 weeks ago when they got attacked on the street. The difference between who you are now and what you learned because you had to go through that experience is what makes you the right person to resolve and let go of that trauma cycle today.
Yeah.
That
So
makes
what is
sense.
the staying power with that then? So say you go through and do a session, do multiple sessions, whatever it might take to get to that core item.
Mm-hmm.
What's the maintenance plan on something like that, for lack of a
That's a
better term?
That's a great question. So, what I found is that those changes tend to be permanent. It's because I'm not telling you you're not going to be anxious. That's the kind of old-fashioned idea about hypnosis is somebody's going to put you in hypnosis and zap you and they're going to say you will not be anxious. There's nothing to worry about. Well, your subconscious mind knows that that's BS. There are things in the world to be anxious about. You have been hurt before. You have had negative experiences before. So that requires maintenance over long term using things like recordings and so on and so forth. And you're sort of tied to that model. Here, what I like to do in my first session is make it a very positive session. We create this anchoring to a positive memory. And all of our patterns of thought and behavior, they have three elements that create them. There's a stimuli, whatever the heck is going on in that moment. There's the response, whatever you came up with to survive that moment. And there's a reward. Now, for things like trauma, the reward is that you survive. That's plenty reward. But over time, and the situation changes, the reward degrades. And the reward of, being anxious, that means that you were on guard for a very long time and you're sort of just became permanently in this situation where I've got my guard up. Over time, that is most likely going to lead to a person becoming very anxious because our bodies and our minds weren't designed to be at that peak for a long period of time. And so with hypnosis, you can relax and let your body rediscover what that felt like before you acquired that pattern. If that pattern is obsolete, that pattern is no longer necessary. But me telling you that doesn't mean anything. It's me guiding this part of you that holds all of this information consciously to this part of you that's stuck in the trauma loop. So I describe it a little bit like getting a splinter. If you've ever gotten a splinter in your finger you can't get out, every time you brush up against something, that hurts. That's the trigger. So here, what we want to do is not go back and relive all the trauma, because in my experience, that causes a period of time where you're all connected back to the trauma and it's difficult. And, I had a lot of trauma growing up. I did not like that as a model. And so when I started my practice, I wanted to find a way to move away from reliving the trauma, but still get the effective result. And so this splinter part, this part of you that's stuck in the loop, needs your attention, not my attention. What do I know about it? I like to say we could have 1,000 sessions. I could say 100 billion words and never know exactly the right thing to say that's going to break that pattern for you. But because in your heart of hearts, in your quiet moments, you've wished, thought, hoped, dreamed that something could have been different. We can't change the past, but we can change your relationship to the past. But you, person you are today, you're the only one who can really do that. My role, I'm just the guide. I'm going to guide you to that place, get in and get out. And when you do that, the splinter is removed, figure out what's going on. The splinter is always the you that had that experience. So imagine, if it's childhood trauma, the splinter is a childlike version of you. If you're a veteran, it's the you who you were in that very, very, very stressful experience, or a firefighter, or a police officer, or EMT. When you pick up that pattern, this is a really interesting thing. Those high stress moments where we don't know what to do, or we haven't experienced it before, those are also hypnotic experiences. If you've ever had an experience where it seems like time is slowing down, what's really happening is your subconscious mind opens like a pupil opens in a dark room, and it's taking in everything about that experience. There's the things that you're aware of, if you were driving, it's the car, it's the road, it's this road, it's this overpass or whatever, all that stuff that you know consciously, this song on the radio, the smell of the exhaust, all that stuff that is known. So when you smell it, oh, that's going to take me right back to it.
Mm-hmm.
But within that, there can be an equal or greater number of things that are subconsciously relevant to that moment that you don't know a thing about, but you could still run into them, and they're still going to be triggering when those feelings seem to come up out of nowhere.
Yeah. So one thing that I know is my audience is made up, of vast majority is going to be firefighters, police, military, first responders, EMTs, stuff like that. And we are notoriously skeptical. I will tell you, I find in talking to you nothing but credibility. I'm very impressed with how much credibility you give this whole modality, which is great.
I appreciate that.
So I hope everyone comes and finds you and gets hypnotherapy through you. If they're going to navigate this in their own life, in their own communities, what is the thing that they can look for to find credibility in a practitioner?
That's a fantastic question. And I really appreciate you asking me that, because I probably would have forgotten to say. So what I would look for is somebody who's certified. I'm certified through the National Guild of Hypnotists. So the National Guild of Hypnotists sets a standard of ethics and a standard of care and doing things that every person who's certified through them has to live up to. The other thing, for me personally, I would be skeptical of anybody who is unwilling to do a little bit of hypnosis with you before you've paid any money. When I do a consultation with somebody, because it's part of my mission to help people understand what hypnosis is, and because of the client base that I work with, when I do a consultation, it's a full hour, it's free, and a part of that consultation is I'm going to spend about 20 minutes bringing you into a trance. We're not doing any work, but just guiding you into that state so okay, this is a real thing. It's not BS. I can be hypnotized. That's probably the number one thing. Everybody thinks that they're that one person who can't be hypnotized.
Yeah.
Everybody is capable of achieving hypnotic states, but some people, because of trauma, because of whatever their protective situations are within themselves, it might be a little more challenging for them to relax and let go and get into that state. But part of my job is to build that trust, be honest, be open, and build that rapport, answering questions and letting people know that, I don't have any control over you. The other thing about hypnosis is it's not sleep. It's that kind of in-between place that we're all familiar with. But within that in-between place that we achieve naturally, there are much, much deeper places that you can be guided to. You're never unconscious. You're always aware of what's happening. Twice in my career, a fire alarm has gone off in the midst of a session. Both times it was a false alarm, but once a young lady jumped about 6 feet straight up out of the chair and ran out the door. The second time I was working with an 87-year-old woman who had lost her sight, and she just opened her eyes and said, "That sounds like a fire alarm. We better head for the exit."
Yeah.
So you're always going to know. If I have to get up for some reason and walk around the room to get another pen, I'm going to tell that client, you're going to hear me get up and walk around, because I don't want to disturb what they're doing. They're doing their own work over there. But it is important to have all of this information about what it really is, I feel, before money changes hands, right? If I'm not lying to you that it's not my hypnosis, it's yours, then I'm losing absolutely nothing by showing you how you discover your state of hypnosis. Does that make sense?
It does. And so I think that's a perfect segue into what we talked about a little bit, was maybe trying a little bit of hypnosis here. I know you have a disclaimer you want to give, which is kind of cool. But let's try that out. I think it's a perfect time to do it.
Okay. So, the disclaimer is that if you are driving a car, operating heavy machinery, chopping vegetables, anything that requires your full attention, you're going to want to push pause and come back to this later when you're safe, when you're secure, when you can sit down and relax for a few minutes. What we're going to do is we're just going to go through a little bit of the process that I do at the very beginning of inducing people, guiding people into hypnotic states. It's very, very simple, and just follow along. So what I'll have you do, if you're listening, if you're sitting comfortably, put your feet on the floor, hands on your thighs or on the arms of the chair if you have a chair. Take a nice deep breath all the way into the belly. Let the eyes close on down. Don't even think about relaxing just yet. Just let yourself notice how you can become comfortable. And take one more nice deep breath all the way into the belly. And as you let it out, just bring your awareness to the middle finger of your dominant hand. Let just that middle finger rise up a little bit, only the middle finger, while the rest of the hand sits flat, and fall back down. Go to the other side, the non-dominant hand, let that middle finger rise and fall. And then just kind of go back and forth, using only the middle finger, rising and falling, until somewhere along the way over the next few minutes, it becomes too much work, too much effort to move those fingers. And when that happens, they'll naturally come to rest all by themselves. Take another nice deep breath all the way into the belly. And as you exhale, in the back of your mind, quietly, privately to yourself, you can begin very, very slowly counting backwards, down from 100. Letting yourself be curious what it would be like if you could relax just a little bit more with each and every number you encounter. Some people do that by picturing themselves writing the number 100, 100 times, 99, 99 times. Other people imagine themselves on a beautiful beach, writing numbers in the wet sand, and in between each and every number, a wave comes and washes the old number away to nothing at all. However you choose to do it is the right way to do it for you. This is your own experience. Somewhere along the line, you'll find you lose track of those numbers, and when that happens, you'll know you've shifted into a nice, comfortable kind of a trance state. Very light, very pleasant. Take another nice deep breath now and just scan your body. Notice any tension, anything other than calm that you discover in your physical self. Notice where you hold it, where you keep it. And then give that uncomfortable feeling a color, whatever color pops into your mind. Once you've given the uncomfortable feeling a color, you can map that. You can notice the margins, the edges. It's not all of you. It's just there that you happen to hold it for whatever reason. And then ask yourself, what color would represent the opposite of that? What would represent being very calm, feeling very safe, very comfortable, at ease, at peace? And then imagine yourself sitting right here, just as you are in this particular moment, surrounded by a beautiful iridescent bubble of that second color, the calming color. Take a big, deep breath all the way into the belly. And as you exhale, just visualize breathing out that first color. And when you inhale, imagine yourself pulling your calming color into that area of the body that was holding the tension color. So that breath by breath, little by little, you're just curious how you change that color from the first to the second, from whatever isn't calm to calm. Some people do that with a little tiny spot of their calm color in the center that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Other people have that calm color start at the edges, the margins that you've found, and gradually reduce that second color with each and every out-breath. Now, what's interesting about this technique is it's a hypnotic technique, because whatever colors you pictured in your mind's eye, those are part of much larger patterns of color that you've seen somewhere before. Colors that you defined as whatever they were, part of that family, that shade, that hue of that color. But the subconscious mind doesn't make up color. You have to go into the subconscious mind to connect with your color. And when I ask you to give a feeling a color, no part of that particular exercise requires the conscious mind at all. And so you bring yourself into these light states. And you may not even have noticed when those old numbers slipped away or been paying any particular attention to when those fingers stopped moving. They just did, or soon will. Take another nice deep breath and just let a wave of relaxation flow from the very top of the head all the way down to the bottoms of the feet. Scan your body and notice what you notice about how you're feeling right now. Compare and contrast the way you feel right now to how you felt when I first started speaking, when I gave the disclaimer. Understand that the difference between those two ways that you can feel is just a light, hypnotic state, and you created it. I didn't do a thing. I was just here talking. You were listening, and it happened naturally, because hypnosis is a perfectly natural part of our everyday experience. Take one more nice big breath in. Breathe out any remaining tension. You can continue on if you wish, but because we have some time constraints, when you're ready, you can just let those eyelids open back up, come back to the room.
Wow.
So what was that experience like for you, Jake?
It was extremely relaxing. It worked well. I'm a very visual person, so the visualizations worked really well for me in terms of the manifestation of the colors and the release of them. And yeah, I feel great. I was carrying some tension, and I feel great. I feel light, and yeah, it was really cool, really impressive. And early on, as I kind of slipped into the state, I was like, had like almost like a humorous monologue, thinking of just like it's so impressive that you would have this skill set where you could just like talk someone into this state. It's like such an impressive human skill, right? That I was, and then like through the manipulation of the left and right hand, which I in the past I've done a therapy modality called EMDR, which reminded me of that, as it kind of went left brain, right brain. And I don't know if there's anything to that or if it's just thing, but that's how my brain's cooking. Before I know it, that the thought of that is gone, and we're just on to the next and on to the next. And yeah, it was just a great experience. It was very therapeutic, I would say.
Yeah,
that was just funny.
And, if you were visiting my office, I'd spend another, 15 minutes or so just guiding you further and deeper, continuing on with the relaxation. And what that does is that just deepens that state further and further and further.
And then what does it look like after that? So like now we get to, so like obviously I don't want you to have to go super crazy in depth, but, say I'm a person that wants to overcome, XYZ thing. You get them into that state. And then what do those conversations look like afterwards, from a high level?
So for me, the first session is always about tools and anchoring. Because tools and anchoring are how you get empowered with your hypnosis. I said before that every pattern that we have has three elements: stimuli, response, reward. So when we're anchoring, we're actually anchoring to a good memory that you have. If you've ever been driving down the road and you hear a song come on the radio you haven't heard in a long time, and all of a sudden, oh, I'm back there, those people, that time, that good feeling, right? That's exactly what we're doing in session, but we're doing it, I guess you could say, on steroids, right? Because when you're in that deep trance, when you step into your moment of memory, it's extremely vivid, extremely powerful, and your brain releases the same chemicals that created that positive feeling at that time. So really what we're anchoring to is we're anchoring to that good feeling of yours. That's a powerful reward, particularly if you're a person who experiences like anxiety or situational anxiety, to use your anchor and be able to shift, the unpleasant emotions tend to get quiet. There's a powerful reward to using your anchor and coming into a good feeling. The more you do that, the more your brain learns it's okay to feel good in that situation. The sky doesn't fall in. I'm okay. And every time you repeat that process, there's an additional reward of, oh, this is working again. Well, this is working again. So it really uses that model of stimuli, response, reward. The stimuli is the old stimuli, whatever it was, the negative. That became a negative. The response is, for a week or so, you're going to remember to use your anchor. And the reward is, that's how I change everything. That's how I train my brain away from what it's always been doing into something that feels more like what's possible for me today.
Wow.
My whole life is different. So that's, for me, usually the first session. I don't make people buy packages of sessions. We just go session by session by session, because we should be seeing results every time we sit together. So I'm going to let you go with that for a couple of weeks. Notice what you notice. I check in with my clients via text to kind of make sure they're doing. It's a two-way communication. I think about it like we're a team of two, right? I'm going to do my part. Your goal is my goal. I'm going to do the best hypnosis. I'm going to give you tools. I'm going to teach you, guide you. Your part is work with your tools. I record that session where we connect to the anchoring part, because that's very, very positive. And you're going to practice with that maybe a couple times over the course of a week. But for most people, because there's this reward element to it, it usually takes about 5 to 7 days before somebody will be sitting there rubbing their fingers together, and they'll think, oh, that's weird. Why am I doing that? It's because that whole pattern of using the anchor becomes a subconscious go-to pattern because it feels good. It's got a powerful reward, whereas the old pattern has lost its reward.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm in. I'm so in. I don't know how many other people that watch this podcast are going to come knocking at your door, but I honestly think I think I want to come and try it out, because I am so interested. I'm so sold. I don't know if your intention was to sell me on the process of hypnosis, but you totally did. And I'm happy to, find something that intrigues me, because as a person that struggled with my mental health for the vast majority of my life, as I've seen more and more success in the recent times, the better I feel, the better I realize it's possible to feel. And so these modalities that come up like this as new options to feel better are extremely intriguing. And so first off, thank you for what you're doing, man. It's so cool to meet people that are changing people's lives and doing good work to make people's lives easier to live in a world that sometimes it's really hard to be a person, right?
Well, I appreciate that. Honestly, Jake, for me, it's my own journey. That's what informs all of this. I really don't think that I could have lasted 23, 24 years, whatever it is now, if I hadn't had some other out. I would have gone back to the opioids, or I couldn't have kept living like that. And so for me, I see this modality as potentially life-saving, life-changing for people. The deeper I got into it, there's a lot of hypnotists. They're like a hypnotist and a Reiki person, or a hypnotist and a massage person, whatever it is. I'm a hypnotist. This modality is deep and broad enough to more than sustain continued researching and learning and growing for the rest of my life. And so the more I learn, the more I'm able to bring to it. And the more I bring to it, the more I help people change their own minds. And I think that, to me, was the thing where everything shifted, was when I let go of having to have any kind of power or control over your outcome. I'm just going to guide you to that place. It's been a process. It's been an evolution for me. My training was bring people into the trauma, have them relive the trauma. And I really, really didn't like that as a modality at all. As a person who's experienced a lot of trauma, to realize that when we fall into those trauma-induced patterns, we don't go all the way back and relive what happened then. We're somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I go with my clients, is this kind of middle place where the splintered off part is, and fix that splinter, reintegrate that splinter. But all that stuff happened. We know what happened. You've got all the symptoms. Mm-hmm. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Let's fix the symptom. And that means so much to me. And that's what, the thing that gets me jumping out of bed in the morning as much as I ever do.
Well, let the people know where they can find you, where they can, make an appointment with you or research the things you're doing or see what you're doing. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest.
Sure. I'm going to read it off my paper here because I might just forget. So I want to know, or I want your audience to know, that I do have some workshops and things specifically geared towards first responders. I've been talking with a number of my clients who are first responders, and part of what we've been talking about is, let's put together a program to help people manage stress, job stress, before a whole bunch of stuff happens. So newer people coming on, as well as people who have been around for a while. I offer consultations and individual hypnosis sessions. My midwinter certification training course is starting up in late January. If you're interested, you can get information about all of this at Summit, SUMMIT, Hypnosis, HYPNOSIS, Northwest, NW.com. That's SUMMIT, HYPNOSISNW.com. Wow.
I'm impressed you read it out that fluently. And I'll tag that link in both the streaming descriptions and on YouTube too. So it'll be accessible for anyone that wants to check it out. Deane, thank you so much for the time. It was awesome. It was super interesting to learn about what you do. And genuinely, I'm gonna get off this. I'm gonna talk to my wife about how I want to sign up and do some hypnosis.
Sounds great. I'd love it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Jake. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about what I do.
My pleasure.
Take care.